Welcome all to this week's series of realism tips. This week we are going to be covering sickness and how that will affect your dinosaurs and possible ways that you can roleplay out being sick. We're going to be using my parrot here as our guinea pig for our sickness. So one of the first ways that you can portray being sick comes from Yana. Yana says, roleplay out being sick, rest a lot more, for call, don't eat and drink very much, and if you do walk, take more breaks to sit down. So being sick can make it hard to keep food and drink down. Throwing up isn't exactly a mechanic in BoB, so to simulate that, you can also just make it harder to eat, like Yana said. Simple activities might seem more strenuous, so as I'm walking along here, I might feel more inclined to give myself a bit of a break. Take a little nap before I progress along. So our next tip comes from Allie, who says that you can sniff to mimic sniffling and coughing, and this is just a good way to roleplay out being sick, especially if you have like a respiratory illness. Maybe you took a bit of a dip in water and you weren't expecting to, and now your dino's got a bit of a cold. So you can sniff just to simulate wheezing, coughing, sniffling, anything of that nature. If you want to sneeze, you can give yourself a little bit of a headbutt to kind of make it look like you just gave yourself a little bit of a sneeze, and then you can give yourself a little bit of a sniff after, like you're still breathing a bit hard. And you can also forecall to give yourself a bit of a shake, or if there's other similar emotes to that, just anything to kind of mimic shaking that off. Looks like I'm being joined by a friend here. So if my dino is experiencing sickness and sick-like abilities, I'm probably going to be less inclined to do any sort of strenuous and potentially dangerous activities. So I wouldn't necessarily cross this water patch and potentially make my respiratory illness worse if I can avoid it at all. Obviously, if the choice is going to be between this and a hungry set of teeth, the water would probably be the better bet. But I can, just give that a bit of a walk back, shake it off a little bit, and come back down here for a nap. Additionally, if you are dying from stress, or if you have any kinds of external game problems that are contributing to your dino actually not feeling well in the game, you can roleplay that out as being sick. So maybe you're on the growth storm and your comfort is tanking. That could be a good opportunity that you might get sick in, and you could experience the vast length of your illness within that confine, just as an example. You'll also notice that even as I'm walking around, I'm typically walking around on all fours as the parrot here. This is just going to be one of the ways that you could possibly mimic being sick. So you could give yourself actual physical handicaps, like maybe you can't run, maybe you can't run as well as you could. You could even have this affect your in-game abilities by putting your talents, go to different trees, or even not setting your talents at all, depending on how you would like to go about it and what tools you have at your resource. So I am playing the parrot right after the latest update, so I don't have any points put into anything, which will naturally make my parrot a bit weaker than she would normally be if I had any sort of investment at all. So if you happen to have a reset available to you, you can also use that as an opportunity to roleplay out being actually sicker and weaker than your dinosaur would normally be. Okay, so I'm now in desert. I had a bit of a spook. Honestly, if it hadn't been for a tree falling on me, I probably wouldn't have even moved at all. So, the last point here is just regarding animals actually being able to get better from their illnesses. So, if you manage to survive your illness in and of its course, then you are able to get better. You can heal, you can recover. If you catch a cold, it's not like that's the end of the line for you in every given circumstance. Getting sick, and part of role-playing out being sick, is giving others an opportunity that they might not otherwise have had with you. So, for example, If your dinosaur just doesn't feel like eating, then maybe your dinosaur just ends up starving to death in a more naturalistic way. Same thing with dehydrating. If your dinosaur is feeling weaker and slower, if my pair couldn't stand up, if it couldn't run, if it couldn't do a lot of things, then that would give me and my predator an opening to attack and kill me at reduced risk to them. So it helps to give yourself more immersion, it helps to give other players more immersion as well. So one good point about sick and especially dying animals too is that animals that are even normally very social might become a bit more solitary than they would otherwise be. That whenever they feel weak like that, they might either stick really close to their herd mates in the hope that their herd mates can help them, or if they think that it really is the end, they might be more inclined to wander off to seclude a place on their own and spend their last moments resting in however kind of a peaceful way that they can. This isn't the end of the line for my para, so while she's going to be a bit more solitary as most paras usually are, that doesn't mean that it's the end for her. So my final point that I'm going to leave you with today is they can also try and roleplay in your sicknesses along with any disabilities that your dinosaur may have. So that can also function as our hint for the following week about what we're going to be covering in Path to Titans.